Welcome back to Leadership from the Kitchen. My name is Wendy Ellis Green with P31 Consulting and P31 Academy. We have covered a couple of topics in this series so far. The first was breaking free from that order taker mentality. The last one was reading the kitchen smell context. Today, we kind of reached the culmination of that internal transformation, and that's we're helping our teams develop and communicate their own informed point of view. If you've ever had the opportunity to speak to a chef, think about how she or he talks about their signature dish. They're not just following a recipe anymore. They've developed a philosophy, a point of view about flavors, techniques, textures, and what creates an exceptional experience for their audience. This is where your team members need to evolve. From the recipe follower to the informed innovator. Early in my career, I followed this recipe for making biscuits. Followed it exactly. Every single step, I did it. 1 teaspoon of salt, I added 1 teaspoon of salt. I measured precisely, I followed every step, and I created consistent results that I was happy with. This is the equivalent of your team, executing standard requests and procedures perfectly. You have no complaints. This is what I follow now. As we evolve, as we develop expertise, we start making informed adjustments. I use sea salt instead of table salt because of the mineral complexity that it brings. I add garlic 30 seconds in so that it prevents some of the burning. Our folks need to understand the why behind each step, each procedure, each ingredient. This is where your team members need to arrive. Understanding the principles behind their work well enough to make informed recommendations and improvements, and also be able to communicate their point of view clearly, concisely, and confidently. Let me try to demonstrate this evolution with a business example. I'm going to keep some of the cooking language in here, though, just to keep everything connected. The recipe follower. They might say, you ask for a client presentation, so I used our standard template and filled in their information. Okay, that's the recipe follower. The informed modifier might say, I noticed they're a tech company, so I adjusted our template a bit to include more data visualization and less tech-heavy slides. Okay, all right. But that signature developer, they might say, based on their industry and their decision-making style, I recommend a completely different approach. How about an interactive demo followed by a brief financial summary? Because tech leaders prefer hands-on experience over presentations. Yes, this is what we're looking for. Did you see that evolution? The signature dish represents the highest level of professional development and thinking, where team members have sufficient expertise to challenge conventional approaches and suggest better alternatives. But here's the crucial leadership insight. You can't rush this evolution. Just like you wouldn't expect a new cook to immediately create signature dishes, you can't expect your new team members or your junior team members to immediately challenge established processes or even contribute beyond their capabilities or even their comfort level. I see this progression in kind of 3 stages. The first stage is mastery of the fundamentals. They can execute the standard procedures flawlessly, repeatedly, and with confidence. The second stage is understanding the principles. They know why procedures exist and when to modify them should they need to. And then the third stage is creating innovations. These people can design new approaches based on a deep understanding of the client and the situation. Your role as a leader is to guide this progression. When team members are in stage 1, just focus on skill development. When they reach stage 2, encourage questions and experimentation. And when they demonstrate stage 3 readiness and thinking, give them the space to innovate. You may recognize a few signs a team member is ready to develop their own signature approach. And as I go through some of these, I hope you are bringing to mind someone. So one of them might be able to explain the reasoning behind standard procedures. Another might notice when standard procedures and approaches don't actually fit that specific situation. Another one might suggest improvements based on their experience or based on client feedback. Another might take ownership of the outcomes, and they're not just trying to complete a task. So your leadership challenge for this week is identify one team member who's mastered the fundamentals in stage 1. Give them a client challenge and say, instead of our usual approach, would you recommend based on what you know about this client? And then follow up with why. Then don't just evaluate their solution. Help them articulate their reasoning. This is how signature thinking develops with mentoring and coaching. The journey from following recipes to creating signature dishes is the same as evolving from the task completer to a strategic thinker. It requires mastering fundamentals, understanding principles, and then developing the confidence to innovate. So until then, keep cooking up great leadership this week by helping your team develop their signature approach. I'll see you next time.